Hello everyone, John A.G. here. Welcome back to my channel, Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, the real market updates that everyone cannot tell you. So please subscribe to this channel, and I love you all, my subscribers, for your relentless support in these unprecedented times. And please, watch this video till the very end, because YouTube will not push my videos to more people, and the algorithms are actively suppressing the exact economic realities we are about to discuss today. We are living through a timeline that history books will dissect for centuries, and you cannot afford to look away. Today is May 10th, 2026, and the world you woke up to this morning is fundamentally, structurally, and irreversibly broken. If you are watching your portfolio bleed red week after week, if you are looking at the price of your utility bill and feeling a cold knot of genuine fear in your stomach, you are not alone, and you are not crazy. What you are witnessing is not a mere market correction. It is not a temporary dip. You are living through the initial shockwaves of the largest global energy crisis in recorded human history, an event so profound that it is currently dragging Wall Street into a devastating 40% recessionary spiral. They promised us a soft landing. They promised us a seamless, painless transition into a utopian green future. They sat in their air-conditioned boardrooms and on their televised financial panels, assuring you that the volatility of the early 2020s was firmly behind us. They lied to you. But here's the truth they are terrified to broadcast. The financial system is currently facing a mathematical impossibility. For the last 40 years, the global economy was built on the assumption of infinite, cheap, uninterrupted energy. Wall Street built its towering derivatives markets, its algorithmic trading models, and its bloated corporate valuations on a foundation of inexpensive baseline power. That foundation has just completely collapsed. We are no longer dealing with a financial crisis, we are dealing with a physics crisis. The screens in New York, London, and Tokyo are flashing red because the physical gears of global industry are grinding to a violent halt. Think about the headlines you have been forced to normalize over the past 6 months. Across vast stretches of Europe and heavily industrialized zones in North America, rolling blackouts are no longer a dystopian threat. They are a scheduled weekly reality. We are witnessing the catastrophic failure of the just-in-time energy model. How did we get here? It was a disaster born of absolute arrogance. The architects of global policy aggressively decommissioned the old world's energy infrastructure, shuttering coal, natural gas, and nuclear baseload plants with religious fervor, long before the new infrastructure was remotely capable of carrying the burden. They bet the survival of the global economy on a supply chain for renewables that is fragile, intermittent, and currently controlled by our geopolitical rivals. When you strip away the financial jargon, the stock market is nothing more than a reflection of human productivity, and human productivity requires energy. When the cost of a single kilowatt hour spikes by 300% in a single quarter, the shockwaves destroy everything in their path. The consumer discretionary sector, the engine of the Western economy, doesn't just experience a downturn, it evaporates. Right now, families across the developed world are sitting at their kitchen tables making impossible, heartbreaking choices between heating their homes and buying protein at the grocery store. In an environment where basic survival costs consume entire paychecks, who is buying a brand new smartphone? Who is upgrading their streaming subscriptions? Who is taking out an exorbitant loan for an electric vehicle that they might not even have the grid power to charge? The answer is absolutely no one. This brings us to the terrifying reality of the 40% Wall Street collapse. Let us look at the actual numbers, the real data that the heavily sponsored financial networks refuse to show you. As we speak, the technology sector, the absolute darling that carried the indices for the last decade, has been brutally decimated. But this is not a repeat of the 2008 banking crisis. In 2008, the financial plumbing broke. In 2020, the world artificially paused. But in 2026, we are experiencing a catastrophic supply-side depression. When a state-of-the-art semiconductor foundry in Taiwan or an automotive manufacturing plant in Germany is forced to shut down its assembly lines because the regional power grid cannot sustain its surge capacity, the entire concept of corporate valuation becomes a meaningless hallucination. Analysts on Wall Street are quietly panicking because the earnings per share projections they sold to the public in late 2025 were hallucinated in a world of cheap energy. Now those projections are imploding. Companies that were trading at 50 times their future earnings are being violently re-rated to 10 times their earnings. That translates to an 80% destruction in share price for some of the most widely held blue chip stocks in your retirement accounts. This is the death of the growth narrative. Furthermore, we are witnessing margin calls on a scale never before seen. The massive hedge funds that aggressively borrowed cheap yen and dollars to leverage bets on a miraculous 2026 economic recovery are now being forced to liquidate their holdings at fire sale prices. This creates a merciless, self-fulfilling loop of forced selling. Assets are dumped to cover debts, which drives prices lower, triggering even more margin calls. Simultaneously, the credit markets have completely frozen. Regional banks are looking at the skyrocketing energy overhead of thousands of small and medium-sized businesses and realizing a terrifying truth. These loans will never be repaid. The businesses simply cannot generate enough revenue to cover the cost of keeping the lights on and the machines running. So, lending stops. Liquidity vanishes. The lifeblood of the economy coagulates. This is the real market update you deserve. The market is not merely down for the quarter. The market is desperately searching for a bottom that simply does not exist yet, because the underlying cause, the massive global energy deficit, has not been solved. If you think this is purely a Western financial phenomenon, I urge you to look at the geopolitical chessboard. We are trapped in a geopolitical perfect storm. Why did this catastrophic unraveling happen specifically in 2026? It is because the era of Western financial dominance has collided with the era of Eastern and Southern resource nationalism. The ongoing conflicts in the Middle East have quietly escalated, effectively throttling the critical maritime choke points that supply the world's oil and liquefied natural gas. At the exact same time, the nations of the Global South have awoken to their immense leverage. The countries sitting on the massive deposits of lithium, cobalt, copper, and uranium, the absolute prerequisites for the modern world, have realized they hold the ultimate trump cards. They are forming cartels, they are restricting exports, and most importantly, they are no longer willing to exchange their vital, hard, physical commodities for rapidly depreciating fiat currencies printed by indebted Western central banks. They are demanding real assets, technology transfers, and hard power. The United States and Europe are currently learning a brutal, unforgiving lesson in physics and economics. You absolutely cannot print energy. A central bank can press a button and create $1 trillion, euros, or yen out of thin air, but all the quantitative easing in the universe cannot conjure a single barrel of crude oil or a single cubic foot of natural gas into existence. The 40% recession we are tracking on Wall Street is essentially the financial markets forcefully admitting that the West no longer holds a monopoly on the physical resources required to run the planet. We are living through a historic tectonic wealth transfer. Wealth is violently migrating away from the paper-based, financialized economies of the West directly into the hands of the physical, commodity-backed economies of the East and South. But beyond the ticker tape, beyond the sweeping geopolitical narratives and the macroeconomic data points, there is a profoundly human story that is breaking my heart every single day. Behind every single percentage point drop in the S&P 500, there are thousands of human lives being fundamentally altered. There are generations of wealth being vaporized. I want to share something deeply personal with you. Just yesterday, I received an email from a longtime Aurex subscriber named Marcus. Marcus is 58 years old. He has worked grueling hours in heavy manufacturing for over 3 decades. He built his life on the promise of the American dream. He was exactly 2 years away from a well-deserved retirement. In the last 5 months, Marcus has watched helplessly as 40% of his life savings vanished into the ether. Marcus is not a day trader. He is not a reckless gambler. He did exactly what the highly paid financial advisors and the mainstream television experts told him to do. He bought the index funds. He held for the long term. He believed the mantra that the market always goes up eventually. In his email, the words leaped off the screen with a palpable sense of betrayal and despair. He wrote to me, "John, for the first time in my adult life, I am genuinely terrified to turn on the thermostat in my own home. Not just because the bill is astronomical today, but because I am suddenly unsure if the money will even be in my account to pay for it tomorrow." That is the true, unfiltered human cost of this crisis. It is the suffocating silence descending on once thriving suburban neighborhoods. It is the endless rows of "for lease" signs multiplying down Main Street. It is the devastating psychological realization that the fundamental social contract has been violently breached. The political and corporate leaders whom the public trusted to safely navigate the transition into the mid-2020s proved themselves to be dangerously incompetent. They prioritized virtue signaling, political theater, and ESG compliance scores over basic engineering and thermodynamic reality. They constructed a towering economic house of cards on a wildly unstable foundation of intermittent wind and solar power, deliberately ignoring the immutable fact that a modern, industrialized society fundamentally requires dense, reliable, 24/7 baseload power to survive. So, what is the establishment actually doing while they feed you platitudes? Why are the monolithic investment banks sending out newsletters advising retail investors to stay the course and buy the dip? Because they desperately need your liquidity to serve as their exit liquidity. When a leviathan is sinking, it needs plankton to cushion its fall. The institutional giants want you, the everyday retail investor, to blindly pour your hard-earned capital into a collapsing market so that they can quietly offload their toxic positions at slightly elevated prices. On this channel, I have consistently given you one unbreakable rule. Watch what the insiders do, completely ignore what they say. If you track the capital flows right now, the insiders are not buying tech stocks. They are not buying speculative growth companies. They are running for the exits and aggressively pivoting into hard, tangible assets. They are quietly acquiring millions of acres of productive agricultural farmland. They are heavily accumulating physical gold and silver outside the banking system. They are purchasing private, off-grid energy infrastructure. They are actively preparing for a harsh new paradigm where digital wealth is entirely secondary to physical survival and resource independence. If you were watching this video right now, listening to my voice, you are already light years ahead of 99% of the global population. The vast majority of people are sleepwalking through this disaster. They are deliberately distracted by carefully orchestrated political circuses, celebrity scandals, and the meaningless noise of social media. They are completely oblivious to the massive 40% cliff edge the global economy is currently tumbling over. But you see it. You understand the mechanics of what is happening. And that awareness, that deeply uncomfortable knowledge, is the absolute strongest armor you possess in the days ahead. I am not telling you these harsh realities to paralyze you with fear. I am telling you this because clarity is power. In a 40% global recession fueled by an energy shortage, the traditional rules of wealth building are completely suspended. Cash may provide temporary safety, but in an environment of hyperinflationary energy costs, fiat currency rapidly bleeds its purchasing power. To survive, you must fundamentally restructure how you view value. You must seek out assets that intrinsically climb the staircase alongside inflation. You need to focus intensely on what I call the energy sovereignty portfolio. If you have capital deployed in the markets, ruthlessly examine your holdings. The only corporations that will emerge intact from the crucible of 2026 are those that maintain absolute control over their own energy supply chains. If a company relies entirely on the crumbling, heavily subsidized public power grid to manufacture its products or deliver its services, it is a massive liability. Furthermore, if you are carrying any variable interest debt, you must treat it as a financial emergency. The central banks are entirely trapped. As this recession deepens, historical precedent dictates they should lower interest rates to stimulate the economy. But because this crisis is driven by physical energy shortages causing massive inflation, they cannot lower rates without destroying their currencies. They will be forced to maintain punishingly high interest rates even as unemployment skyrockets and the economy suffocates. It is a terrifying stagflationary trap, a Volcker moment amplified by 100. You must insulate your personal balance sheet from this tightening noose. But beyond the financial maneuvers, beyond the portfolio rebalancing, the most critical asset you must cultivate right now is mental and emotional resilience. Do not allow the relentless sea of red numbers on a digital screen to strip away your humanity. The psychological warfare of a protracted market crash is designed to break your spirit. You must fiercely protect your mind. Focus on your immediate family. Build tangible, deeply connected communities in the real world. The catastrophic crises of 2026 will not be survived by those who simply get lucky in the markets. They will be survived and overcome by those who are meticulously prepared, deeply grounded, and fiercely resilient. I want to speak directly to the core of the Aurex family right now. I fully comprehend how intensely difficult it is to process this level of systemic breakdown. It would be infinitely easier for me to sit here, flash a forced smile, and record highly monetized videos promising you that a miraculous economic rebound is right around the corner, or hyping up the next speculative cryptocurrency destined to go to the moon. But the people peddling those comfortable illusions do not care about your survival. They only care about extracting your views, your engagement, and your capital. I care deeply about the people who watch this channel. I care that you have dedicated your time to understanding the truth. I care that you support this mission, that you engage in the comments, and that you bravely share these heavy videos with your loved ones. That profound responsibility is the exact reason I spend sleepless nights poring over dense, impenetrable energy sector reports. It is why I analyze terrifying geopolitical white papers and obscure central bank balance sheets. Because you, the subscriber, deserve the absolute, unvarnished truth. You deserve the real market updates, stripped of all corporate spin and political bias. We are acting as a lighthouse in the middle of a historic Category 5 economic hurricane. As the reality of the largest global energy crisis fully materializes, sweeping away decades of financial illusion, I promise you that I will be right here. Every single week, we will track the institutional capital flows, we will relentlessly expose the mainstream media's lies, and we will navigate the treacherous waters of this 40% recession together. We are aggressively moving into a brutal, unforgiving summer of discontent. As the physical temperatures rise and the power grids buckle under the strain, the sheer, unadulterated panic on Wall Street is going to amplify to deafening levels. It is highly probable that we will witness the circuit breakers triggered on the New York Stock Exchange multiple times before the end of this quarter. When that happens, and the news anchors are hyperventilating on live television, I need you to remember this exact moment. Do not panic. Panic is a luxury that only the unprepared can afford. Instead, I want you to be entirely clinical. Observe the world exactly as it is, not as you wish it to be, and certainly not as the politicians tell you it is. The 2026 recession, as brutal as it is ultimately a massive, necessary cleansing fire. It is forcefully burning away the thousands of zombie corporations that only managed to exist because of a decade of 0% interest rates and artificially suppressed energy costs. The economic structure that remains after this inferno will be rooted in reality, but the transition period we must endure to get there is going to test the limits of our endurance. Remember this fundamental axiom: the mainstream financial media is always a lagging indicator. By the time they finally capitulate and officially declare that we are entrenched in a 40% recession and a global energy depression, the most devastating financial damage will have already been inflicted upon the middle class. You are receiving this vital information in real time, ahead of the curve. You must use it. You must act on it to shield your family and preserve your wealth. Every single monumental crisis in recorded human history, from the crash of 1929 to the oil shocks of 1973 to the great financial crisis of 2008, and now the great energy reckoning of 2026, has ultimately served as an incredible period of opportunity for the tiny minority of individuals who maintained their composure while the rest of the world lost its collective mind. This is our generation's ultimate test. It is the crucible that will define the trajectory of our wealth and our freedom for the rest of our lives. If you found genuine, actionable value in this deep dive, please hit that like button right now. It is the only weapon we have to fight back against an algorithm that desperately wants to bury this exact type of economic reality. And as I implored you at the very beginning of this broadcast, subscribe to Aurex. We are rapidly growing a powerful, awakened community of individuals who demand the truth, no matter how deeply uncomfortable or terrifying that truth may be. I love you all, my subscribers, for your incredible support. You are the sole reason I keep pushing forward. You are the reason I refuse to compromise on the reality of the data. Please, watch my other in-depth videos on the structural deficits in the energy sector and our detailed analysis of the upcoming market shifts to ensure you have the complete, unedited picture. Do not let your friends and family walk blindly into this financial slaughterhouse. Share this video with them immediately. The world as we knew it is over. The lights are flickering, the markets are violently repricing reality, but together, we will stand firm, we will adapt, and we will survive. I am John A.G. This is Aurex. Stay safe, stay highly informed, and I will see you in the next one. Watch this video till the very end. Your future truly depends on it.